Welcome to Ray Stories, from ancient African myths to modern mysteries. So sit back, relax, let's journey together through the magic of storytelling. Don't forget to subscribe. The morning sun of Isiaha rose like molten gold, spilling across the ivory towers of the royal palace. From the tallest spire to the humblest courtyard, the kingdom throbbed with music and movement. Drums rumbled like the heartbeat of the land, horns blared their victory songs. The air shimmered with the fragrance of myrrh and burning incense. Today was the coronation, the day Prince Tay, first son of King Adaro, would be named heir of the Golden Throne. The courtyard outside the palace gleamed with gold thread banners and woven tapestries depicting the victories of Isiaha's ancestors. The wars fought, the peace won, the gods appeased. 1,000 nobles stood shoulder to shoulder, their robes heavy with jewels. Chiefs from the northern hills, envoys from the desert kingdom of Olam, and even merchants from the far coasts of Zaffa had come to witness the ceremony that would mark a new era. At the heart of it all sat King Adaro himself, tall, stately, his presence commanding without a word. His crown rested easily upon his head, his robe of deep indigo embroidered with the royal sigil, a golden sun cradled between two crescents. Yet beneath his calm, those close enough could see a flicker of weariness, a shadow behind the king's proud gaze. He had ruled for 25 years. He had buried a queen. He had kept his kingdom whole. Now, as he turned toward the steps of the throne where his son knelt, the king's heart felt a strange mixture of pride and pain. Prince Tay bowed deeply, his armor glinting in the candlelight. At 22, he was every inch the image of a royal heir, broad-shouldered, sharp-eyed, with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. His people adored him. His soldiers worshipped him. He was the living promise of continuity. Today, the High Herald proclaimed, his voice booming through the vaulted chamber, the blood of Adaro shall continue in his son, Tay of the Sunline. May the gods of earth and sky bear witness. A roar of approval thundered through the hall. Women ululated, warriors struck their shields. The high priest, Elder Boko, stepped forward with the golden crown cradled in his frail hands. King Adaro rose, his voice solemn. My son, today you bear the weight I have carried. Rule not with might alone, but with mercy. The throne is not a prize, it is a promise. Prince Tay bowed again, his lips trembling with emotion. I will make you proud, father. As Elder Boko lifted the crown high, light caught on its edges, scattering sunbeams across the walls. The air thickened with anticipation. And then, a single, thunderous boom shattered the rhythm of drums. The great bronze doors of the hall burst open. Every head turned. The musicians froze mid-beat. Even the incense smoke seemed to halt in midair. A young woman stood framed by the light from the courtyard, dust swirling around her bare feet. Her clothes were simple, a brown wrapper tied at her shoulder, torn at the hem. Her hair, a dark halo of curls, glistened with sweat. But it was her eyes, sharp, unflinching, burning with something neither fear nor madness, that seized the room. Gasps rippled through the assembly. The royal guards drew their spears, forming a barrier before the throne. King Adaro rose slowly. Who dares interrupt the sacred rite? The girl's voice rang clear and strong. Stop the coronation. The man on that throne is my father. The silence that followed was not ordinary silence. It was the silence that comes when time forgets to move. Elder Boko's hands froze mid-air, the crown glinting between heaven and earth. Nobles whispered, a rising murmur like distant thunder. King Adaro stared, uncomprehending. What did you say? The girl took a step forward. Her gaze never wavered. My name is Nia Zawadi, daughter of Queen Malika of Nyamara. And you? The name fell like lightning. Adaro's breath caught in his throat. The name Malika, the queen lost 2 decades ago in the fire that razed Nyamara, the love he had buried in silence. Whispers turned to cries of disbelief. Impossible. A trick. She's a mad woman. Prince Tay's face twisted in fury. Lies, he barked. My father has one heir, and it is I. Guards, remove her. But before the guards could move, the girl reached into a small pouch tied around her waist. She drew out a small weathered pendant, the royal crest of Eziahar, shaped from gold and obsidian, the symbol only the true bloodline bore. Gasps rippled through the hall. Even the drums at the far end fell silent once more. She held it high. The pendant's edge caught the sunlight, and for a moment, it seemed to glow. "This," she said, her voice trembling, "was my mother's. She told me to keep it until the day I met the man who shared her soul." The words sent a shiver through the crowd. King Adaro's face paled. He stepped down from the dais, each movement slow, uncertain, as though wading through memory. "Where did you get that?" His voice was barely a whisper. "From Queen Malika," the girl said. "Before the Great Fire. She gave it to me and said, 'Find your father. When truth calls, Eziahar must listen.'" She lowered her gaze, then turned the pendant over. The back gleamed faintly with an inscription, words carved in delicate, deliberate strokes. "For my beloved Adaro, our child will wear this." The gasp that followed shook the very walls. Elder Boko's hands trembled so violently he nearly dropped the crown. The pendant was unmistakable. He had seen it once, long ago, the day the queen disappeared into the flames. Prince Tay's eyes burned with disbelief. "It's forged," he spat. "A fake trinket to deceive a kind heart." But no one moved. Even the guards hesitated, their loyalty torn between orders and awe. The girl, Nia, dropped to her knees. The pendant slipped from her hand and rolled across the marble floor, coming to rest at the king's feet. She looked up at him, her voice breaking. "I did not come for your throne. I came for the truth." King Adaro bent down, his trembling fingers brushing the pendant. For a moment, he saw not the strange girl before him, but Malika, her laughter, her warmth, the promise they had made before destiny tore them apart. He closed his eyes. The court watched, breathless. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with something deeper than authority. It was the weight of memory. "Bring the high priest," he said quietly. "And no one shall touch this girl." Prince Tay took a furious step forward. "Father!" Adaro raised his hand. "Silence." The command struck like a whip. Even Tay froze. The king turned to Nia. His gaze softened, though fear still lingered there, the fear of truth long buried. "If what you say is real," he said, "then Eziahar itself has been built upon a secret." Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, though the sky was clear. The scent of rain drifted through the open doors. And somewhere deep within the palace, a bell tolled, slow, mournful, as if marking the end of an era. The coronation was over. But a new story, one that would shake the kingdom to its roots, had just begun. The golden hall of Eziahar, moments ago alive with drums and laughter, now pulsed with stunned silence. The crown still hovered in Elder Boko's trembling hands. Every noble, every guard, every servant's gaze fixed on the kneeling girl, the stranger who had halted a coronation with 9 words. King Adaro stood motionless at the foot of the dais. The pendant glimmered faintly where it lay before him, its gold catching the flicker of torchlight. Outside, thunder rolled again, closer this time, though the skies remained cloudless, as if the gods themselves listened. The king's voice finally broke the silence. "Rise, girl. Tell me your name again." Nia lifted her head. Her voice, though soft, carried through the vast hall. "My name is Nia Zawadi, daughter of Queen Malika of Nyamra, and you?" Murmurs swelled like a rising tide. Chiefs exchanged uneasy glances. The foreign envoys whispered translations to their scribes. Prince Tay's jaw tightened. His knuckles whitened around the hilt of his ceremonial sword. "She lies," he hissed, eyes flashing toward his father. "It is a plot, a trick to disgrace our house. You cannot." "Enough." Adaro's voice cut through him like thunder. He turned back to Nia. "You claim to be the child of Malika of Nyamra. Yet Queen Malika perished 20 years ago in the Great Fire. Her body was never found. Her people scattered. Tell me, how do you live to speak her name? Nia's lips quivered, but she did not look away. Because she lived long enough to save me. When the palace burned, she carried me through the smoke. She was wounded, but she hid me beneath the altar of the sun shrine. She said, "Wait for the day when truth will call you home." Gasps echoed through the court. The priests murmured ancient blessings, crossing their fingers in fear. Elder Boko shuffled forward, his old eyes glistening. "Your Majesty, the words she speaks, they mirror the prophecy." The king frowned. "What prophecy?" The priest's voice lowered, as though the walls themselves were listening. "The oracle of Nyamara, before the war," she said. "The child of flame shall return when the sun bows to the moon, and truth shall walk again in the house of kings." We believed it meant a new dawn, not this. The hall rippled with unease. Adaro's gaze fell again on the pendant. The inscription gleamed like a ghost from his past. He whispered the words under his breath. "Our child will wear this." His throat tightened. He turned sharply toward Nia. "If you are truly her child, prove it. Tell me something only Malika would know." For the first time, uncertainty flickered in the girl's eyes. She swallowed hard. Then, softly, "She called you Aomi, my joy, because she said you smiled even in storms. She said your laughter kept the gods from stealing the light from her eyes." Adaro's breath caught. He had not heard that name in 2 decades. Not even his closest counselors knew it. The hall blurred for a moment, the scent of burning wood and her laughter flashing before him. His fingers trembled as he touched his chest. No one knew that but her. Elder Boko fell to his knees. "By the gods of sun and stone, it is true." The crowd erupted into chaos. Gasps, shouts, questions. Some cried that the lost princess had returned. Others called it witchcraft. The guards stepped forward uncertainly, waiting for the king's command. Prince Tay's voice rose above the din, sharp as a blade. "Father, you cannot believe this. This girl appears from nowhere, spouting half-remembered tales, and you would trust her over your blood." Adaro's voice hardened. "You will mind your tongue, Tay." "No," Tay shouted, stepping closer. "I have been by your side all my life. I have fought for your name, carried your banner, bled for your kingdom. And now this, he pointed at Nia, shaking with rage. "This pretender dares claim what is mine." Nia's voice rose, clear and defiant. "I came not for your throne, Prince. I came for truth." Her eyes glistened, but her tone never broke. "If I am not who I claim, let the gods strike me down for blasphemy. But if I am, then they will reveal it." Adaro raised a hand. "Enough. Both of you." The room fell silent again. The king's gaze swept over his court, his chiefs, his guards, his son, the trembling girl before him. "This matter will not be settled by shouting. The gods themselves will decide." He turned to Elder Boko. "Bring her to the chamber of judgment. We shall test her claim before the sacred flame." The hall stirred uneasily. The chamber of judgment, a place of truth where no lie survived. Guards stepped forward, but Adaro raised his hand again. "No harm shall come to her." Prince Tay's nostrils flared, but he bowed stiffly. "As you command, father." The ceremony was dissolved. Nobles filed out murmuring. Drums were silenced. The golden crown was returned to its case. As Nia was led through the corridors, she caught glimpses of whispered faces behind carved lattice screens, servants crossing themselves, elders clutching amulets. To them, she was an omen made flesh. In the quiet of the inner hall, Adaro paused. He watched her walk beside Elder Boko, her posture straight despite the weight of every gaze upon her. Something inside him, long buried, stirred again. He whispered to himself, almost afraid to believe, "Could it be you, Malika?" That night, the palace slept restlessly. The chamber of judgment lay deep beneath the palace, an ancient place of marble and fire. At its center burned the eternal flame of Isiaha, said to reveal truth through its reflection. Only those of pure royal blood could stand before it without trembling. King Adaro entered first, wearing a simple robe. Elder Boko followed with the sacred texts. Then came Nia, her wrists bound not by rope, but by golden thread, a sign of trial, not punishment. "Step forward," said the high priest. "Let the fire see your heart." Nia stepped into the circle of light. The flames danced, their golden tongues bending toward her. A hush fell over the chamber. Adaro's breath caught. The fire brightened, not dimmed, not flared, but glowed, as though recognizing something ancient. Elder Boko fell to his knees. "The flame knows her." Adaro's eyes filled with tears. "Malika's child." Nia turned toward him, her eyes shining with both triumph and pain. "You believe me now?" The king nodded slowly. "Yes, I believe." He took a step toward her, but before he could reach her, the heavy door burst open. Prince Tay strode in, flanked by his guards. "You call this proof? Fire and superstition." His voice echoed off the stone. "You would ruin the kingdom for a whisper from a flame?" Adaro's expression hardened. "Leave this place, Tay." But the prince stood his ground. His eyes met Nia's, cold, burning. "If she is truly my sister," he said, "then I have nothing to fear. But if she's not, she'll bring ruin upon us all." He turned sharply and stormed out, his footsteps echoing down the corridor. Silence lingered long after he was gone. Nia turned back to the king. "He hates me." Adaro sighed heavily. "He fears you." Fear often wears the mask of hate. He reached for her hand gently, almost afraid she might vanish like a dream. "You have returned, my child. The gods have spoken. Isiaha must now face the truth." Outside, thunder rolled once more, the herald of a storm that would soon shake every stone of the kingdom. Night descended upon the golden palace of Isiaha like a slow-moving shadow. The corridors, once alive with music and laughter, now echoed only with the hushed shuffle of guards and the distant murmur of torches. Rain began to fall, tapping against the marble arches, a rare omen in a land where the skies wept only when destiny stirred. King Adaro sat alone in the chamber of truth, staring at the pendant that rested on the table before him. The flame from a single oil lamp flickered across its engraved words. "For my beloved Adaro, our child will wear this." Each letter was a wound reopening. The revelation of the day still burned in his mind. The girl's trembling voice, her mother's name, the prophecy whispered by Elder Boko. Nia Zawadi, daughter of Malika. The impossible child. But could truth and illusion wear the same face? Adaro pressed his palms against his eyes, weary. "If it is true," he whispered to the empty chamber, "then I have wronged not only the dead, but the living." The door creaked open softly. Elder Boko entered, leaning on his carved staff. The old priest's white robes glowed faintly in the lamplight, and his face bore the weight of too many secrets. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing low. "You summoned me." "Yes," Adaro replied without looking up. "You served this kingdom before I was crowned. You knew Malika. Tell me, could it be true? Could she have lived long enough to bear a child unknown to us all?" Boko's eyes drifted toward the pendant. "I once thought I had seen every wonder and every sorrow beneath the sun, my king. But the gods are cruelly fond of surprises." He approached slowly, lowering himself into the seat across from Adaro. The air between them thickened with incense and memory. "When Queen Malika vanished during the Great Fire of Nyamra," Boko began, "I searched the ruins myself. I found the remnants of her crown, the ashes of her robes, but not her body. Only this pendant, and a single prophecy carved into the altar wall." Adaro's head lifted. "Prophecy." The priest nodded gravely. "It was ancient, older than the kingdom itself. When the moon devours the sun, and fire births new blood, the child of flame shall return to mend what war has broken." I did not understand it then. But tonight, the heavens remind me, the eclipse comes tomorrow. The king rose abruptly. The eclipse? Yes, Majesty. The first in 20 years. The same time the queen vanished. Do you not see? Her blood has returned on the eve of the same shadow. Adaro turned away, pacing. The words scraped at his reason. So you believe this girl, Nia, is my daughter? Born of prophecy. Boko's eyes gleamed faintly. I believe she bears Malika's fire. Whether it burns for peace or destruction, I cannot say. Thunder rumbled outside, low and distant. The king stared into the rain-dappled window. And if she is not? If she is a fraud, planted by enemies who know our legends too well? The priest's voice softened. Then let the eclipse reveal her. The gods never hide what belongs to truth. Silence lingered, heavy, unbroken except for the steady fall of rain. After a moment, Adaro spoke again, quieter. She told me something no one could know. Aomi. The name Malika called me when we were alone. Boko's face softened. Then the gods have spoken through her lips. But before he could continue, the door burst open. Prince Tay strode in, his robe unfastened, fury etched into every movement. Father, enough of this madness. Mind your tone, Adaro said sharply. I will not. Tay slammed his palm against the table. The court whispers. The people gossip in the streets. They say I am not the true heir, that some forest girl with a trinket carries your blood. You would risk our kingdom's peace for a ghost's promise. Elder Boko lowered his gaze. Prince, beware the tongue that defies destiny. The flame does not lie. Tay rounded on him. Old man, you speak of flame and prophecy, but you are drunk on myth. I have trained for the throne since I could walk. I have earned it with sweat and blood. And now this stranger, this thief of names, threatens to steal everything. Adaro's voice was calm, but dangerous. You speak of what you do not understand. She is not after the throne. Then why is she here? Tay spat. Why now of all times? The king's silence was answer enough. Tay's eyes widened. You believe her. I fear her, Adaro corrected quietly. Because her coming means the past has not finished with me. The prince's fury cracked into disbelief. You would cast aside your son for a stranger's tale? Adaro stepped closer, his shadow falling over him. I would not cast aside my son, but I will not ignore truth. If she is your sister, Tay, then the blood you share binds you both. If you deny her, you deny yourself. For a moment, the room trembled with silence, the kind that precedes breaking. Then Tay's voice dropped to a whisper, venomous. You will regret this, father. He turned and stormed out, the door slamming behind him. Elder Boko sighed. His heart burns with pride. He must be watched. I know, Adaro said softly. But what father can cage the fire he himself lit? He sank back into his chair, the years weighing on him like armor turned to stone. Boko hesitated, then leaned forward. There is something else, Majesty. The eclipse's shadow brings not only truth, but danger. The prophecy spoke of fire and blood. If the child is indeed Malika's, she carries not only her mother's grace, but her curse. Adaro looked up sharply. Curse? Yes, the priest said, lowering his voice. When Nyamara fell, the seers warned that the royal blood of that line was bound to both light and destruction. The same flame that gives life could devour it. The king's heart thudded. You mean she could be the kingdom's salvation, Boko interrupted gently, or its ruin? Only the gods will decide. Adaro's gaze drifted back to the pendant. The lamp's flame shimmered on its surface, and for an instant, he imagined he saw her, Malika, smiling from the reflection. He whispered, almost to himself, Malika, why did you keep her from me? But the flame only flickered, and the shadows deepened. Outside, The corridors were hushed. Nia stood alone by a tall window overlooking the moonlit courtyard. The pendant hung around her neck now, the same pendant the king had returned to her with trembling hands. She traced its edges with her fingers, feeling warmth pulse beneath the metal, as though the memory of her mother still lived inside. "Mother," she murmured, "if he truly is my father, why does my heart ache so?" No voice answered, only the wind whispering through the trees. But far below, in the courtyard shadows, a figure watched her, silent, cloaked, his hand resting on the hilt of a dagger. Prince Tay's advisor, Kenu, leaned close to him and whispered, "Shall I deal with her, my prince?" Tay's jaw tightened. "Not yet. Let her think herself safe. But if she threatens my crown again, Iziaha will lose another daughter to fire." The moon slipped behind the clouds, dimming the world to darkness. In the tower above, Nia turned away from the window, unaware that her destiny had already been marked, not just by prophecy, but by the envy of a brother who could not bear to share the sun. And beyond the palace walls, the drums of Nyamra began to echo faintly in the wind, a rhythm long thought forgotten. Tomorrow, the eclipse would come. And with it, the kingdom's reckoning. The night before the eclipse hung over Iziaha like a restless spirit. A strange wind swept through the palace, dry, whispering, carrying the scent of dust and rain. Even the stars seemed to keep their distance. The kingdom waited in uneasy silence, as if holding its breath before a storm that would decide its fate. Prince Tay could not sleep. He stood by the balcony of his chamber, staring into the endless dark. The moon glowed pale above the horizon, tracing silver along the edges of his armor. Below him, the palace gardens lay still, drenched in ghostly light. Somewhere beyond those walls, the girl, the intruder, the pretender, slept under the same roof as his father. He clenched his fists. "She calls herself my sister," he muttered. "But she is the thief who came to steal my destiny." He could still see the way his father had looked at her, not as a stranger, but as blood. That gaze had once belonged to him alone. Behind him, a door creaked open. A figure slipped quietly inside. Kenu, his closest advisor, thin and sharp-eyed, his voice soft as a blade drawn in shadow. "Your Highness," Kenu murmured, bowing low. "I bring word. The guards assigned to the girls' quarters have been changed. 2 are from Nyamra, men loyal to the old queen." Tay turned slowly, his expression hardening. "So even my father's own guards whisper her name like a prayer now?" Kenu nodded. "The palace bleeds with gossip. They say the guards themselves will prove her royal blood when the eclipse comes. The people, they are beginning to hope." "Hope?" Tay spat. "Hope for what? That I am unfit to rule? That my crown belongs to a girl who grew up in the dirt?" Kenu hesitated. "Forgive me, my prince, but hope is a dangerous seed. Once planted, it grows roots in the hearts of men. If she truly is who she claims to be, she threatens everything you have built." Tay's jaw tightened. "Then she must be uprooted, quietly, before dawn." Kenu's lips curved into a thin smile. "I can arrange it. A quiet disappearance. An accident, perhaps. No one will question it in the chaos of the eclipse." The prince turned back to the balcony. For a long moment, he said nothing. The night wind tugged at his cloak, making it flutter like a banner of war. Finally, he whispered, "No blood in the palace. My father would never forgive me. But make it look as if she fled. She came from the shadows. Let her vanish into them again." Kenu bowed. "It will be done." Down the corridor, the girl in question sat awake by the dim light of a single candle. Nia could not sleep either. Her thoughts tumbled like storm waves, her mother's voice, her father's tears, the prophecy, the fear in Prince Tay's eyes. The palace walls felt both alien and familiar. Somewhere deep within her, a pull connected her to this place, its marble floors, its incense, its echoes. She could feel her mother's spirit in every hall, every flicker of gold. She touched the pendant at her neck. It was warm, pulsing faintly, as if it had its own heartbeat. Mother, she whispered, you told me truth would bring peace. But all I see is fire. As she spoke, the candle flame flickered violently, bending toward the window. A cold breeze swept in, snuffing it out. Nia shivered. In the sudden dark, she thought she heard a voice, faint, tender, distant. Be brave, my child. The night must break before the dawn. She gasped softly, Mother. But the whisper faded. Only the rustle of leaves remained. Then, a sound. A quiet scuff of sandals outside her door. Nia froze. The steps were slow, deliberate. She rose silently, her heart hammering, and pressed her ear against the wood. Muffled voices drifted through. Keep it quiet, one man whispered. The prince wants no noise. Her blood ran cold. In a single breath, she crossed the room and threw open the window. The moonlit garden stretched far below, too far to jump without breaking bones. But just beyond the wall, an old fig tree reached toward the balcony like a bent hand. Without a second thought, she climbed onto the ledge. The door handle turned. Now, a voice hissed. Nia leapt. Branches snapped. Pain shot through her shoulder as she struck the trunk, sliding down roughly before landing in the dirt. The guard's shouts echoed above. She's gone. Find her. She ran. Barefoot, breathless, through the shadowed gardens, past the fountains and the sleeping statues of kings long dead. Behind her, the sound of pursuit grew fainter. The gates of the palace loomed ahead, closed, but not locked. A small service door gaped slightly open. She slipped through it, disappearing into the forest beyond. At dawn, word of her disappearance reached the throne room. King Adaro sat in silence, the message trembling in his hands. Gone, he repeated, his voice low. She left without a word. The captain of the guard bowed deeply. We searched every corridor, Majesty. Her window was open. There were footprints leading to the gardens. Then nothing. She vanished into the forest. The king's shoulders slumped. Elder Boko stood nearby, his face grave. It was foretold, the priest murmured. The child of flame would walk the path of exile before the eclipse. Adaro's eyes flashed. Foretold or not, she is my daughter. Send riders. Search every village, every riverbank. Bring her home. Prince Tay stood near the window, feigning concern. Perhaps she realized the truth would not favor her, he said smoothly. Perhaps shame drove her away. Adaro turned sharply. Or perhaps she was driven away. For a moment, father and son stared at each other, the weight of suspicion heavy in the air. Then the king turned away. Find her, Tay. Prove your loyalty to me and to this kingdom. Bring her back safely. Tay bowed stiffly. As you command. But as he left the chamber, his expression hardened. She won't be found, he muttered under his breath. Not alive. By nightfall, the rumors had spread beyond the palace walls. In the markets and the fields, the people whispered. The lost princess has returned. No, she's fled again. The gods will bring her back. The kingdom hummed with speculation. Some said they saw her walking by moonlight along the river. Others swore she turned into flame and vanished into the hills. The legend of Nia Zawadi had begun. Elder Boko gathered the priests at the Temple of the Sun. They burned incense and chanted, their voices rising toward the heavens. The blood of Malaika has awakened, they cried. The eclipse comes to judge truth from falsehood. And in the quiet of his chamber, King Adaro stared out the window, the rising moon reflected in his weary eyes. Malaika, he whispered, if you can hear me, guide her home, before my own son destroys what love remains in this kingdom. Outside, lightning split the sky. Thunder rolled across the horizon, the voice of the gods, calling to the blood of kings and the fire of queens. Far beyond the palace walls, deep within the forest of Nyamra, Nia knelt by a riverbank, clutching the pendant in her hand. The eclipse had begun to darken the edge of the moon. And from somewhere beyond the trees came a whisper carried on the wind. Her mother's voice again, soft but urgent. The truth is waiting, my daughter. Follow the fire, and you will find the past. Nia rose, determination burning in her eyes. The forest ahead glowed faintly under the shifting light. She stepped forward, into destiny's shadow. The sun bled into the horizon, heavy and red, as the day of the eclipse dawned. Across the kingdom of Iziaha, the air hung thick with tension, too still, too quiet. Birds avoided the skies, and even the river that ran through the valley seemed to flow more slowly, as if time itself hesitated. Far from the Golden Palace, deep in the overgrown ruins of Nyamra, a young woman knelt before a grave marked by a single golden leaf. Her face was streaked with tears and dust. The pendant at her neck pulsed faintly, catching the first light of the morning sun. Nia Zawadi had not slept in 2 days. She had wandered through the forests guided only by whispers and dreams, a mother's voice calling her home, a trail of fireflies that lit her path through the dark. Now at last she had found it, the resting place of Queen Malaika, the woman who had saved her and the truth she had been born to uncover. Mother, she whispered, her voice breaking. I've come back, just like you said. But the kingdom doesn't believe. My brother wants me dead, and my father, she swallowed. He fears me. The wind stirred, warm and gentle, lifting her hair. Somewhere in the ruins, an unseen flame flickered, faint, golden, alive. She looked down at the grave again. The golden leaf shimmered brighter. Beneath it, the faint carving of words glowed as if written in fire. When the sun bows to the moon, truth shall rise from ash. Nia's heart thudded. The eclipse, she whispered. It's today. Back in the palace, King Adaro rode out at dawn, cloaked in plain fabric, followed by a handful of loyal guards. He had left before the court awoke. Elder Boko rode beside him, his old frame stooped but unyielding. You are certain she is there? The king asked, gripping the reins. Boko nodded. The signs point to Nyamra. The pendant's light, the dreams you described. Malaika's spirit calls from the ashes. It is time. Adaro looked toward the horizon. The sky was beginning to dim, the edge of the sun already nibbled by the advancing moon. Time, he muttered. I have lived too long chasing the past. Perhaps it has finally caught me. The horses galloped through forests of whispering leaves and sun-dappled ruins. The smell of earth and rain filled the air. As they neared the heart of Nyamra, the ruins came into view. Pillars blackened by ancient fire, stones carved with faded symbols of the sun god, and a single tree growing where once a throne had stood. There, before the tree, knelt Nia. The king halted. For a long moment, he could not move. The sight struck him like lightning. The resemblance to Malaika was undeniable. The curve of her cheek, the proud tilt of her chin, the sorrow in her eyes. He dismounted slowly, his heart trembling. Nia, he said softly. She turned, startled. When she saw him, tears welled instantly. Father. He hesitated, then stepped forward. I should have come sooner. I should have believed sooner. She shook her head. You believed what you saw. And all you saw was a ghost. He smiled faintly, a broken thing. Perhaps. But even ghosts can teach the living. They stood in silence, the wind rustling through the ruins. Elder Boko watched from a distance, whispering a prayer. Finally, Adaro spoke again. What brought you here? Nia gestured toward the grave. This is where she hid me. The night the fire consumed Nyamra, she brought me here and said, when the moon hides the sun, the truth will rise. The king knelt beside her, brushing the dust from the stone. His fingers trembled as they traced the golden leaf. She always spoke in riddles, he said quietly. But her heart was pure. As he spoke, the light around them began to dim. The eclipse had begun. The moon was sliding over the sun, casting strange shadows across the ruins. The world grew colder, darker. The pendant at Nia's neck began to glow, faintly at first, then brighter, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Father, she whispered. It's burning. Adaro stared, wide-eyed. The pendant's light reflected in his eyes. The prophecy, he breathed. It is happening. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the ruins. The fire that had flickered among the stones roared to life, circling them like a living ring of gold. The king's guards drew their swords in alarm. And then, a voice. Soft, melodic, familiar. My king, my joy, you have found her. The air shimmered. Within the flame, a figure took shape, translucent, radiant. Queen Malika stood before them, her robes woven from light and shadow, her eyes filled with both sorrow and grace. Nia gasped and fell to her knees. Mother. Malika smiled, her voice echoing like music in water. My child, you have walked through darkness to bring truth into the light. And you, Adaro, have carried your guilt too long. The throne divided by lies will crumble. But the child who unites truth and blood will save Iziaha. Adaro's eyes filled with tears. Forgive me, Malika. I thought you were lost forever. Nothing is lost, my love, the spirit replied. Only forgotten. Until now. The wind swirled. The flames rose higher, brilliant and golden. Nia reached toward her mother, but her hand passed through light. Don't go, she cried. I will never leave you, the voice whispered. You carry me within you. Then the light flickered, and a sharp sound split the air. An arrow. It flew from the shadows, slicing through the golden light. Adaro turned just in time. The arrow struck his shoulder. He staggered back, clutching the wound. Father! Nia screamed. From behind a fallen pillar emerged Prince Tay, his bow still trembling in his hands. His eyes were wild, his face pale with fear and rage. She will not take what's mine, he hissed. I am the heir. I am the future. Stop, Tay. Adaro cried. This madness will destroy you. But Tay knocked another arrow, his hands shaking. It's already destroyed me. Before he could loose it, a blinding light flared from the pendant. The fire around them surged upward, roaring like thunder. The arrow snapped mid-flight, turning to ash. Tay fell to his knees, covering his face. What is this? He shouted. What are you? Nia stood, the pendant blazing against her chest. Her voice was calm but powerful. I am truth. And truth does not bow to fear. The flames subsided. Tay looked up, trembling, as the eclipse reached its peak, the sun swallowed completely by the moon. In the eerie twilight, Malika's voice returned one last time. Forgive and be free. Adaro reached for Nia's hand, his blood staining the earth. My daughter. Forgive your brother. He knows not the weight of his fear. Nia nodded, tears streaming. I forgive him. And as she spoke the words, the eclipse began to wane. Light returned to the world. The fire faded, leaving only the golden leaf, now glowing with quiet peace. Tay wept, his bow falling from his hands. I tried to kill you, he whispered. But all I killed was my own heart. Nia knelt beside him. Then let it be reborn. The king smiled faintly, leaning back against the ruins. The prophecy is fulfilled, he murmured. Iziaha will heal. As the sun returned, the spirit of Malika dissolved into light, rising toward the heavens like a flame freed from its wick. And in that light, the three of them, father, daughter and fallen son, wept together, as truth finally burned away the shadows that had haunted them all. The sun rose again over Iziaha, golden and new, as if the heavens themselves had been cleansed. The eclipse had passed, the shadows had fled, and with them, the ghosts of lies that had haunted the royal bloodline for 2 decades. Yet in the quiet dawn that followed, the kingdom stood in awe. For the night that had nearly torn it apart had also reborn it. At the palace gates, a sea of people gathered, nobles, soldiers, peasants, traders, children, all whispering the same name, Nia Zawadi. Some called her, the Fireborn. Others, the Daughter of the Sun. All waited to see if the stories carried by the winds of the eclipse were true, that the lost child of Queen Malika had returned to claim her rightful place beside the king. Inside the royal chambers, the wounded King Adaro stirred in his bed. His shoulder was bandaged, the arrow wound still tender, but his spirit burned brighter than it had in years. The scent of healing herbs filled the room. The air hummed faintly with the songs of the royal healers. Elder Boko sat at his bedside, murmuring ancient blessings. When the king opened his eyes, the old priest smiled faintly. "You live, Majesty. The gods have given you back to your people." Adaro exhaled slowly. "And to my daughter." From the window, sunlight poured in, illuminating the empty space beside his bed, a space where Nia had sat through the night, watching over him. She had left only an hour before dawn, to stand before the people. Boko rose, leaning on his staff. "They await your word, my king. The kingdom hungers for peace. And for truth." The king nodded. "Then let them have both." In the grand courtyard, banners fluttered from the golden towers. The drums of Isiaha began to beat, slow, steady, solemn. The same drums that had once celebrated coronations now called for renewal. Nia stood before the gathered crowd, her robe white and gold, her pendant gleaming like captured sunlight. Her hair was crowned with woven flowers and gold thread, the symbol of Nyamra's queens. The high herald's voice thundered across the courtyard. "Behold Nia Zawadi of Nyamra, daughter of Queen Malika and King Adaro, rightful princess of Isiaha and bearer of the sunline." A wave of murmurs spread through the crowd, disbelief mingling with awe. Some bowed, others wept. As Nia stepped forward, her heart pounded. She could feel thousands of eyes upon her, those who had doubted her, feared her, prayed for her. Her voice trembled only once before it found its strength. "My people," she began, "I came to Isiaha seeking truth, not power. I was born in ashes, raised in exile, guided only by the memory of a mother's love and a promise, that truth, no matter how buried, will always rise." Her gaze swept across the courtyard, across the banners, the soldiers, the children clinging to their mothers. "I have seen the pain that silence breeds. I have seen what fear does to brothers, to fathers, to nations. But I have also seen forgiveness, and it burns brighter than vengeance." The people listened, spellbound. At that moment, a figure appeared at the edge of the platform. Cloaked, his head bowed. Gasps rippled through the crowd. It was Prince Tay. He moved slowly, his steps heavy, his face pale. The crowd parted before him. Guards tensed, unsure whether to stop him, but Nia lifted a hand. "Let him pass." Tay knelt before her. The sunlight caught the streak of silver now threading his dark hair, a mark of the eclipse's fire that had seared through his spirit. "Sister," he said hoarsely, his voice cracking, "I came to destroy you. Instead, you showed me myself." Nia's eyes softened. "The fire that burns you," she said quietly, "can also purify you, if you let it." Tay bowed his head. "I ask no forgiveness. Only to serve what is right." The crowd murmured again. Elder Boko stepped forward, raising his staff. "The gods have spoken through both sun and shadow. Isiaha stands between them. Let truth and unity reign as twin lights." From the palace balcony above, King Adaro emerged, leaning heavily on his staff but standing tall. His robe shimmered in the morning light. His crown gleamed faintly but without pride. "People of Isiaha," he called, his voice carrying through the courtyard like rolling thunder. "You have seen what lies can do to kings, what silence can do to blood, and what pride can do to love. No throne is worth the truth it destroys." The crowd fell to its knees. "Today," Adaro continued, "we begin again, not as two nations, not as two bloodlines, but as one kingdom under the light of two suns. The daughter of Nyamra stands beside the son of Isiaha. Together, they will guide this land into the dawn that prophecy promised." He beckoned. Nia and Tay stepped to his side. The old king took the golden crown, the same one that had once paused mid-air when time itself froze, and held it between them. "This crown," he said, was forged for one head. But today it belongs to two hearts. He lowered it gently, letting it rest for a moment on both their heads, brother and sister, heirs of two realms united by fire. The drums thundered. The people roared. Long live the kingdom of two suns. The sound echoed across valleys and rivers, carried by the wind to every corner of the land. Later, when the celebrations filled the streets, Nia stood on the palace balcony, watching the people dance. Gold petals rained from the towers. Children painted their faces with symbols of the sun and moon. Behind her, King Adaro approached slowly. "Your mother would be proud," he said softly. Nia turned, smiling through her tears. "I felt her today. In the light, in the air. I think she never left." The king nodded. "She never did. The dead do not depart when the living remember." They stood in silence, father and daughter, watching as the city burned with joy instead of war. Below them, Prince Tay moved among the people, no longer wearing armor, no longer bearing the weight of heirship, but carrying the humility of a man reborn. He laughed with children, bowed to elders, and for the first time, his heart was at peace. Adaro turned to his daughter. "The prophecy is fulfilled. But tell me, Nia, what do you see for Isiaha now?" Nia looked toward the horizon, where the sun was setting behind twin rays of gold. "I see a kingdom that will heal. One where truth sits beside power, not beneath it. One where sons and daughters both bear crowns of light." The king smiled faintly. "Then it is yours to guide. My reign ends at dawn. Yours begins." Nia's breath caught. "Father." He raised a hand gently. "No. The kingdom must live beyond its kings. You and your brother will rule together, light and shadow, as the gods intended." She bowed her head. "I will not fail you." Adaro placed his hand over her heart. "Then you have already succeeded." As the last of the sun's rays touched the palace walls, the golden pendant at her neck glowed once more. A soft breeze whispered through the air, a woman's voice, tender and proud. "You have done well, my daughter." Nia smiled, her tears shining like jewels. The drums rose again, carrying through the city, through the forests, through the ruins of Nyamra reborn in song. The kingdom of Isiaha celebrated its new dawn, the dawn of the two suns. And as the stars emerged, twin lights shone brightest above the palace, one golden, one silver, a reminder that truth and mercy, though born of different fires, could share the same sky. The end. Loved the story? Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and become part of the Audi Ray Stories family. Your support helps us bring more powerful African tales to life. Thanks for watching. We can't wait to share the next one with you. See you soon.